Hi, everybody. Al Bernstein here with another one of my hot topics, a show in which I talk about things that either are hot topics for boxing fans or I think ought to be. And on this one, we're going to start out with something that is on boxing fans' minds, I think, right now, and that is the future of Shakur Stevenson, who has now moved up to the 140-pound division with an amazing win over Teofimo Lopez at Madison Square Garden, in which he just was astonishing in dominating the fight and winning a mega fight against Lopez. And what is interesting, I think, about this and looking ahead is the fact that we have Stevenson stepping up in weight, up to 140 pounds. He's come up a couple of weight divisions where he's won titles. And now he's sitting at a weight that I think could be a really good weight for him. And when fighters keep moving up in weight, they're always courting problems and disaster, depending on how far they move up. But for him, I think 140 might be a very, very comfortable weight. Now, Teofimo Lopez, while he was a champion and an excellent, superb fighter, was also a 140-pounder that had moved up not that far before he won the title to 140 pounds. And I think some people, probably me included, see him as a little more effective at 135, which takes nothing away from Stevenson's win. But what it kind of portends that's interesting is that there are a whole bunch of fighters in that weight division that are more natural 140 pounders who have been at that weight class a much longer time. And it will be interesting to see whether they can be more of a challenge to Shakur Stevenson. I think some of them provide a very interesting scenario as opponents to Stevenson. The division itself, in my opinion, has the most depth of talent of any division in boxing. I'm not suggesting that the people at the top are better than the people at the top of every other weight division. That's not necessarily the case. But in terms of depth and the number of really good fighters in the division, I think it's at the top of the list. And so there are fighters out there, natural 140 pounders who have been plying their craft at that weight class for a while, that I think would be very interesting opponents for Shakur Stevenson. And I hope that it's more than just a cup of coffee at 140 pounds for him. I hope he can stick around in that division for a while and take on some of these challengers. On February 21st, there's a 140-pound fight between Gary Antoine Russell and Andy Hiroka that I think is a great fight. Hiroka's waited a long time. The Japanese 154-pounder waited a long time for a world title shot. Now he finally gets it. And Russell, who won the title at 140 pounds and is a very, very good fighter with power and a left-hander, as is Hiroka. And I think that's going to be a great fight. I see that as a pick'em fight, honestly. Either of those men, whoever emerges victorious, I think would be a very appealing opponent for Shakur Stevenson. And both are very definitely solid 140 pounders. Then there's Dalton Smith, who just won a 140-pound title by beating Subriel Matias in a exciting fight. Dalton Smith stepped up, fought the best competition he's faced to this point against Matias, and got the job done, and got it done with boxing skill and power. And he would be, in my opinion, a really good opponent for Shakur Stevenson. And because of what he brings with the UK fans and the potential that he adds to a fight with Stevenson in terms of commerce, and with Stevenson himself, of course, bringing quite a bit to the table, needless to say, the merging of those two would be impressive in terms of making it a big fight. Now, that's part of the reason why I think Conor Benn from Great Britain has gotten so much attention post-fight from Stevenson and others because of the commerce of that fight. If you ask me which one I'd rather see Dalton Smith against Shakur Stevenson. I think it's a more compelling and interesting matchup. The other fighter, one of a number of other fighters who I think would be intriguing as opponents would be Alberto Puello, who is now number one in the WBC rankings, who is a former champion and is a very, very difficult man to fight. He's a big, tall lefty who has got some pop in his punches. Not a big power puncher, but he's good, has a good skill level, and is not an easy man to defeat by any stretch of the imagination. So he's also an interesting potential challenger for him. I hope that we can see some of these fights in the 140-pound division. I think we're at a point where, because Shakur Stevenson is even added to his brand with that win over Teofimo Lopez, that for all those fighters, it becomes a lucrative fight for them. And for Stevenson, facing the best in that division will enhance his legacy for sure. And I think most of those would be intriguing fights. I mean, you can only imagine, the Dalton Smith fight would create a great buzz across the ocean, and with Russell as part of the Fighting Russell brothers, Gary Russell being the most famous. He brings kind of a little bit of boxing royalty, if you will, into the fight, and so that's an intriguing matchup as well. I just think some of those matchups would be very good. So I hope Shakur Stevenson can be at 140 for a little while to face some of these really, really good fighters, and we look forward to that. And we'll see if they can be more of a challenge to him than Teofimo Lopez was in New York. Now, my second hot topic is something that I think I don't do very often. That it is, I am advocating for a boxing match. I usually don't poke my nose in to do that all the time. I'm more content to cover what's happening and simply talk about it and analyze it. But in this case, there's a fight I really, really would like to see, and I hope they can make. And that is a heavyweight encounter in a division that is creating a lot of excitement for fans. I would love to see WBO champ Fabio Wardley defend his title against Agit Kabayel. To me, that is one of the most exciting potential fights in the heavyweight division. Wardley, who creates these thrilling comebacks, which he had to do to win the title, and Kabayel, who has been involved in some fantastic fights in getting big wins over the last couple of years. He had a year and a half span where he got 3 major wins, then had a layoff, and then recently came back with a big win. So they're on the same schedule to fight each other, Wardley and Kabayel, and neither of them have a dance partner right now. It was thought that maybe Wardley would fight Derek Chisora, but Chisora went off and is fighting Wilder. Alexander Usyk doesn't seem to be available to either of these men right now. So this fight, in my opinion, makes sense. It would resonate in a huge way in Europe. And I think if explained and covered the right way in the United States, fans would understand it's a good fight, and I think would be intrigued by it. They should be, because it would be a slugfest and a very, very intriguing matchup. So I am hoping that becomes a hot topic and is something that boxing fans want to see, and that somehow the powers that be feel like it could be made. I just think it would be very, very exciting. And the heavyweight division has produced some really, really good fights here in the last couple of years and continues to. So this one would take its place among those matches. Well, that's this edition of Hot Topics. We'll see you next time.